Hi guys, how's it going? It's all that I'm checking. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. July was my highest month of dividend income, and in total I have received dividends from 6 holdings, 5 ETFs and 1 individual company. And in this video we're going to go through each of those payments and add them all up to reveal how much I have received for the month, as well as the total dividend income received so far in 2024. So here is my dividend calendar, and I did mention in one of my previous videos that I don't have any companies or ETFs paying me dividends in June and December. So even today these periods are still blank because I haven't had the time to look for a company that or an ETF that pays dividends in June and December. Researching a company takes a whole lot of work, and I haven't had the time, as I say. So these periods are going to remain blank until I find the chance to sit down and look for that company. And also I'm just trying to not make a mistake of buying a company simply because I want to receive dividends from it, to find that this company is not a good company. Like, I don't want to make the very same mistake I made with Pick n Pay. I literally just bought Pick n Pay simply because I wanted dividends and I disregarded a whole lot of things. So I don't want that to happen again. So this time around I'm just trying to be careful and just try to make the right decision because I know better. And I actually believe that this investing thing, it's a journey. Today we're going to be at point A and tomorrow we're going to be at point B. And when you are moving to point B, you have to make sure that you're going to get to point B being a more experienced person. You know, you cannot be the very same person that you were when you were at point A. So that's actually where I am right now, that I need to be smart about it and make sure that I'm going to pick a company that I have done my research on, and it's a company or an ETF that I can hold for the longest time. So looking at this calendar, you get to see that in July I'm getting paid by most of my ETFs and companies. That's why I receive more in dividends in July than I ever do in any other month. The company that paid me dividends is the Stor-Age Property REIT with a dividend yield of 8.42%. It paid a dividend of 56.81 cents, and at the time of receiving the dividends I had 197.5 shares, and I have received 112 rands and 21 cents in dividends. And moving to ETFs, so all of my ETFs are in the TFSA, so there is no dividend tax that I incurred when I was receiving these dividends. So the first ETF that paid me is the One Invest SA Property, and it has a dividend yield of 5.71%. It paid a dividend per share of 98.13 cents, and it did not pay dividends in May. And honestly, I don't know why an ETF will decide to not pay dividends. I haven't done my research on it, so I don't know what was the reason as to why they did not declare any dividends in May. So now they declared 98.13 cents, as I've said, and it's quite high, but I think it makes sense because they skipped dividends in May. So maybe we are being paid 98 cents to also cover for the missed dividend that was supposed to be paid in March. And at the time of receiving these dividends, I had 206.5 shares, and in total I have received 202.76 cents in dividends from this ETF. And the one thing that I was very much intentional about when it comes to ETFs and companies that I know that they pay me a bit high in dividends was to make sure that I receive at least 100 rands. So Stor-Age, as I said, I have received 112. It's just a little bit over 100 rands. Even with it, I just told myself that I want to receive at least 100 rands. And I remember at the time when I was doing my calculations, I was going to receive only 84 rands, and I made sure to invest a bit more to just make sure that I received 100 rands in dividends. And I knew that it was going to make me happy because that was my goal. So receiving at least 100 rands from these companies and ETFs that have at least a dividend yield of 6%. For me, I feel like I have arrived, you know, when I receive at least 100 rands in dividends. That is the whole point of me going a bit all in on these companies. My plan with the One Invest SA Property is to pump it up a bit to just make sure that it becomes the second largest holding in my TFSA, simply because it does not have a low dividend yield. The dividend yield is 5.71, and to round it off, it's 6%. So I'm very much happy with it, and given the fact that it performs very well, or it has been performing very well since the beginning of the year. Currently it is up 10.1%. So I've just realized that if I put money into this, I'll also be getting capital returns because it is up 10.1%, and this is high for property ETF. This is quite high. And also looking at how it was performing the past year, it wasn't really performing this well. So just looking at how it has been improving, it's been very motivating to invest more in it. And if we look at the performance of this ETF and the performance of the S&P 500, this ETF currently right now, it's outperforming the S&P 500. And okay, we know that the S&P is one of the best performing ETFs, but currently in my portfolio, I don't know about in your guys' portfolio, but in my portfolio, the One Invest SA Property is outperforming the S&P 500. And that is not to say, don't misunderstand me guys, that is not to say that this ETF is better than the S&P 500. I'm not saying somebody must go and sell their shares in S&P 500 ETF and buy the One Invest SA Property ETF. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just trying to highlight the fact that it has been performing well, you know, in my portfolio, and that has been a motivating factor for me to know that, okay, if I go all in this ETF, I will not regret it because I'll also be getting more in capital appreciation, unlike the Satrix Divi ETF, where we know that it hardly performs well. You're just in it for dividends. So with this One Invest SA Property, it's a bit more different. And if we look at the share price chart, looking at the 1 year change, it's up 18.12%, which is pretty good, honestly pretty good, especially because property companies, REITs in their nature, are not the best performing companies. So to find an ETF that tracks the property companies performing this well, I believe it's a bonus. So I'm really looking to build my holding in this ETF. That is my plan, and obviously I will continue with it in the coming year because I'm about to max out my TFSA, so I will not have any chance to invest more in it. Then the next ETF I have is the Satrix Top 40 ETF. This one has a dividend yield of 3.30%, which is quite low, you know. And I did say before that the Satrix Top 40 ETF is really not for dividends. If you are looking at it for passive income, it's going to take you a very long time to get to that desired amount you want to get to when you invest for dividends. So it paid a dividend per share of 70.94 cents, and I had 58.33 cents, and I have received dividend income of 41 rands and 38 cents. The next ETF that paid me dividends is the Satrix Divi Plus ETF with a dividend yield of 10.7%, and they paid a dividend per share of 4.47 cents. That is literally just 4 cents, right? And at the time of receiving dividends, I had 7,813.4 shares, and my dividend income was 349 rands and 26 cents. And honestly, seeing that they only declared 4 cents in dividends, I literally screamed because Satrix, what do you mean? You know, I believe that the Satrix Divi ETF is that ETF that will make you feel like you are doing the right thing when you're investing for dividends, you know, because the dividend yield is 10.7%. It's quite high, so we should be getting more in dividends, even though at the end of the year when you count that your dividend income for all 4 periods it's going to be high. But why can't I receive more now? Well, that was me, you know. And also because I worked so hard to build my holding in this and to just make sure that I have the highest number of shares in this ETF, and for them to declare only 4 cents, I was like, Satrix, you don't want to see us progress. You really don't want to see us progress. But it's fine. My dividend income from them was 349 rands, and I'm very much pleased with it. And currently I have 8,392 shares, and my plan is to have 10,000 shares in this ETF. So I need to purchase 1,000 608 shares more, and the price being 2 rands and 56 cents. So I need to invest an extra 4,100. And looking at how much I have left to invest in this, in my TFSA, I'm not gonna make it. I'm obviously not gonna make it, but it's okay. It will just be my financial goal for the next tax periods, because once I max out my TFSA, I won't be able to, well, I will be able, but they will tax me. But I am not allowed, for the sake of tax, I'm not allowed to invest more once I reach that 36,000, which in the coming month, I'm obviously going to mix it out. So this 4,000, I will not be able to invest in it. So this year, I guess the Satrix Divi ETF, my plan is not going to materialize, but it's definitely okay. I will continue next year. And then I have the Satrix capped all share with a dividend yield of 3.7%, and they paid a dividend per share of 8.8 cents. And this one, they pay dividends 6 times a year. And obviously, like I've mentioned before, that the dividend yield has to be spread over that 6 times period. So if maybe you were not aware that the capped all share has a low dividend yield, don't think they're paying that little in dividends. It's not peanuts like that. It looks like it is when you look at just one period, but when you go back to see how much they have been paying in the previous periods, and considering how much they're going to pay in the coming periods, it's really not that little, you know. So they declared a dividend per share of 8.8 cents. At the time of receiving this dividends, I had 106.8 shares, and my dividend income was 8 rands and 55 cents. The last ETF that paid me dividends is the Sygnia S&P 500. This is a growth ETF, but they pay dividends. They have a dividend yield of 1.1%. They paid a dividend per share of 49 and 78 cents. They only pay dividends twice, this one. So my number of shares at the time was 109 and 86, and my dividend income was 54 and 69 cents. So looking at my total dividend income for July 2024 and comparing it with my total dividend income for July 2023, this is growth, guys. This is what I like to see. This is what I want for myself, right? Last year, I only received 68 rands and 11 cents, and this year, in total, I have received 768 rands and 85 cents. And looking at my dividends chart from the beginning of the year until today, July is the month where I have received the highest, and then followed by April, where I have received 247 rands, and then January, where I received 225 rands. And my total dividend income for the year is 1,305 and 11 cents. And that's it on my dividends for July. I will see you guys on my next video. I'm going to drop it hopefully in the coming weekend. I will see you then. Bye.